We are back, people. What is up? It's finally official. The news is out. Jeff Hafley is the Miami Dolphins' new head coach. I know maybe not everyone will be happy about this. As I've said, it is very difficult to judge sometimes how these coaches, GMs will end up performing. I think there's some reason for optimism, but I also think there's a lot of question marks to still have. And I think this is now just a process. I'm going to be definitely deep diving into some Jeff Hafley Packers defensive film tonight. So expect like a film breakdown tomorrow on like his coordination skills, like what kind of defense he'll bring to the team. Because I think that's one of the more interesting names. Um, I also am I think one of the biggest things for this hiring is seeing who the coordinators will end up he brings in. I think that's one of the main keys. Um, my thing is sort of just maybe be a little open minded. Let's see how it plays out. I think honestly, like any head coach, this is one of the tougher, I think, coaching jobs to go into in this off season. So I, want to be a little bit of patience, but it will be interesting. And the reason I'm not because I've said I haven't had like super strong opinions about it. It seems like the people that do know him speak very highly of him, even people who don't have to, because obviously like LaFleur has spoken highly of him. They expected him to get a job. But even guys like Richard Sherman has spoken highly of Jeff Hafley often. Like when he was with the Niners, he would speak highly of Jeff Hafley. He even has like tweets after he retired speaking highly of Jeff Hafley. So he's clearly pretty well liked, well respected. He clearly did well in the interview process. I know people will have concerns about maybe he's just hired because John Eric Sullivan, they're friends, that type of thing. And I understand having that concern, but they will have a working relationship. And the reason I'm not maybe as concerned about that as others is he was interviewing in a lot of places. So it wasn't just like, oh, it's just Miami and maybe one other team interviewing him. Like, no, he's interviewing for like 5 teams. He had second interviews with a few of them. Like, it seemed like it was pretty highly touted around the league. A lot of people were impressed with him. So I'm definitely going to give him a shot. I don't want to overreact in either direction, but I just feel like most people are negative. So I want to be, at least give him a chance. Yeah, but let me see what you guys are saying. He is young too. He's 46. Personally, if I was building a team, I would be going after like the young guy that's maybe a little unproven. Does have head coaching experience from college. It's a little bit different game, but he at least can understand like the sort of building a staff side of things. He has experience doing that. I think Boston College was a tough spot. He even has like quotes talking about it because it was like COVID had hit. Boston College was not willing to give NIL money. That was just starting, but I do think from what I know about Hafley, what I can really go off by Hafley is watching his defensive film, and I think he is a good defensive mind. That's really like the only thing I can base that off of, and obviously the other things are pretty positive. And you listen to him speak, there's a lot of. It's clear he's a good communicator. I think that's a lot of people have talked about being a good communicator. He clearly can at least talk the talk. Let's see if he can walk the walk. But it's not surprising at all. I also I would recommend checking out Simon Clancy's article about Jeff Hafley. He posted it, I think, yesterday. But he goes into deep dive, has a lot of quotes from like different people, and all those because he's been around. He comes from the Shanahan LaFleur tree. Like he's been with Shanahan and LaFleur, so I expect him to bring in. Usually Shanahan and LaFleur tree guys are offensive, but he is from that defensive side. But I do expect him to bring in a play caller that would be from like that LaFleur Shanahan side of things, which is what I prefer. I think that's one of the better offenses in the league. But let me see what you guys are saying. Yeah. This team makes me so mad. I'll tune back into losing millionaires when they are running the AFC East. Okay. Dolphins don't have the 2 biggest foreheads between the two. True, they do. Yeah, the Beavis and Butthead thing is funny as long as people don't go too far. Yeah, I think the hiring of the coordinator is the biggest thing, specifically offensively. I still think I wouldn't be surprised if Hafley keeps the defensive responsibilities unless he brings in someone he really trusts to call the defense. But I think he'll be very heavily involved on the defense side of the ball. No matter what coach is hired, there are always players that speak highly of them. I mean, not always, but I do understand what you're saying. That definitely happens. But it seems like he is definitely well respected, at least from the outside looking in. It definitely feels that way. He has a lot of experience. Like even I feel like Richard Sherman's not someone that easily gives out praise, and he is like very praiseful of Hafley. That's why I'm like a little like I read into it a little bit more because I don't feel like he's saying it just to say it. He's said many positive things about Hafley. Um, but yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, I know people. A lot of you are saying the friend hire thing. I mean, yes, they work together for 2 years. That happens a lot. They hire people that they're comfortable with, that they'll have a working relationship. The reason I'm not as concerned about it is just being he's just hiring his friend. It's no, he's hiring someone he clearly believes in. He's putting like he is tying himself to Hafley. And if you like John Eric Sullivan, I think you should like Hafley. If you don't like John Eric Sullivan, then I understand not liking Hafley. But like he clearly has a lot of faith in him, and it wasn't like Hafley wasn't getting interviews elsewhere. You know what I'm saying? Yes, it's official pretty much. I mean, multiple sources have said like I think they still. I mean, maybe it hasn't been signed yet, but like they're all saying like yeah, they're hiring them. Yeah, we're officially Packers South according to a lot of people, or Green Bay South, which is kind of funny. We'll see how it works out. I mean, does Malik Willis become even more of a possibility now? Maybe if they have the money for it. And obviously, the Dolphins were motivated to get this done because he was scheduled to go to Tennessee for his second interview tomorrow, and I don't think they wanted that to happen. I'm canceling my season tickets. Hey, you do you. And, like this is a process at this point. Like the Dolphins are in a reset, rebuild, whatever word you want to use. They're in that process of kind of starting over. To me, whoever the coach was, I think getting in the players is what really matters because I think a lot of coaches would have been seen as first year failures with what they're trying to do now in Miami. But man, some of you are very upset. I mean, I think it's the same people repeating the same things over again. I understand not being too optimistic about it, but I would just say don't say he's horrible without even actually seeing him be a head coach. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's official. Adam Gase all over again. Why do you say that? Ryder, do you like Malik Willis as an option? I think he's probably, if you're running a similar offense to what Green Bay's doing, he's probably the best option out there for what is like actually available. I say this as someone who wasn't a huge Malik Willis fan coming out of college. He has very much impressed me when he has had to play over the last 2 seasons. Like way better. This is Philbin all over again. Which one is it? I've seen Cam Cameron, Philbin, and Adam Gase all over again. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Oh, sorry. Pretty sure, yeah, Troy Aikman was definitely on board with this. But bottom of the barrel. But how do you know that? You don't. I don't know. There's so much that goes around. But I'm very excited to break down his scheme because I do like his scheme. I think he's actually done a pretty good job with the Packers defense considering like a lot of their talent. Like when he had him top 5, top 6, like that was a huge turnaround from what they were before. And I don't think they're like an untalented bunch, but I think like he got the most out of them. And even last year, I know they took a hit when Micah went down, but they were still like a pretty good defense. But yeah, family hiring family, just like the NFL. It's funny. I appreciate the super chat, but it is funny. Like I feel like the people that told me like he's hiring a friend were also a lot of the people that are like get Chris Shula in there, which I also don't think like if they hired Chris Shula, I don't think it would be because of his last name. But I'm excited. I think really what this coaching hire comes down to for me is what sort of staff he brings in. I like him as a defensive mind. It seems like he's very well respected, good speaker, pretty good like communicator, teacher type of guy. From the outside, I don't know how true that will end up being. Will he get the most out of his guys? Who knows? I think I think most of his success actually really depends on like the GM and how much talent they can get in here. Because I think that's that's the Dolphins' biggest issue right now is they're missing talent at certain spots. But yeah. Yeah. Oh, I just saw this tweet from My Sports Update. He said the Giants hired Harbaugh before his next visit with the Titans. The Falcons hired Stefanski before his next visit with the Titans, and the Dolphins hired Jeff Hafley before his next visit with the Titans. Really trying to screw over the Titans, I see. But yeah, this feels like we fired just to hire defensive Mike McDaniel. I mean, I don't really but why do you say that? Like, what's the similarity between them? Because they don't from people, they don't feel super similar. I mean, they maybe are both calmer side, but I mean, it seems like Hafley is a more uh, concise speaker. But I don't. I mean, seems very different. And one's on the opposite side of the ball, one's defense, and like you said, but I don't see too many similarities. Definitely a bridge head coach to tank next year. I mean, that's a possibility that could happen, but I don't think they're hiring him to do that. You know what I'm saying? Hypothetically, if Jeff decided to keep Anthony Weaver, do their schemes clash? I'm guessing you mean clash. I mean, there's definitely some clash. My guess is Weaver wouldn't be here, but they have coached together before, but that was a long time when they worked on the same staff. But you see a staff holdovers. I could see Slowick sticking around because Slowick is from the same tree. They've had some overlap as well. I don't know about anyone else. Everyone keeps alluding to the negatives during his Boston College stint. Can you shed light on this? It's just his record. It's just he was he had a slightly losing record at Boston College. It was only 1 year that he had a losing record, but it hurt the overall. But I don't put too much stock in the college stuff. Even if he had a perfect record or a terrible record, I think college is such a different game, and situation is so different. And like I've said with Boston College, he even talked about it. It was a COVID year. The Boston College is a very prestigious school. They don't give out scholarships to anyone who doesn't have good grades. And NIL, they couldn't get anyone there, so they were just a very untalented team when he was coaching there. I don't really put much stock in the record thing. I mean, we've seen the best college coach of all time not have success at Miami, so I don't really care. Unproven head coach that's really good at getting the most out of guys who maybe don't get a chance somewhere else. See, I'd be I don't really agree with that because Hafley had multiple interviews. It seemed like he was going to get a chance somewhere else. And Mike McDaniel literally might get a chance somewhere else this offseason right after being fired. So they seem like guys that are definitely going to get chances. It's not like nobody wants them or thinks it's just Miami taking leftovers. But yeah, we're in draft season. Ryder, could you spec on the Weaver situation? How long you wait until we letting Weaver go? I mean, maybe you're trying to see if someone hires him as a head coach for the comp pick thing, but if not, then I think they probably move on fairly quickly. If it's pretty obvious he's not going to get one. Will Frank Smith stay? I doubt it. No track record. Nobody has heard of him till just now. That's just not true. You just haven't heard of him till just now. Which, if you haven't heard of him, that means usually there's a thing in people's brains where they're like, if I've heard of this person, good. If I haven't heard of them, bad. But that's just not how life or reality works, But And why do we not interview Weaver? Kind of weird. Yeah, that's also the reason I would think Weaver's going to be moved on from. I actually was surprised we didn't interview him. Right? Do you personally want to keep Weaver as DC? I mean, I don't think they need to. I mean, I don't think defensive coordinator matters too much. If Hafley's calling the plays, it doesn't really matter that much, D coordinator wise. You just need someone who understands your scheme and can help you with game planning. Which I'm sure he'll bring in someone that can do that. I'm not too concerned with D coordinator. I'm much more concerned with the offensive coordinator. It's over. Might as well fire this coach next season. Okay. I'm saying McDaniel was when initially an unproven head coach who then got a lot of mileage out of guys who got turned away from other teams. Yeah, but that's pretty much every head coach. That's not been a previous head coach. Right or why I don't love this hire is due to personal preference. I like offensive-minded play callers because I think they are much harder to find. Buck FC, you know what? That is a very fair comment, and I actually agree. But the only pushback I'll say is defensive coordinators can find success too. Like, you know, the Seattle Seahawks, Mike McDonald is absolutely killing it. You know, D'Amico Ryans with the Texans absolutely killed it. Like, there's guys that can find success, but I do understand that worry. I do think it is probably the better path to go with the offensive guy, but it's not like the end all be all in my opinion. Hafley is who is pretty good at betting, getting the most of guys, maybe who aren't all pro talent. I'm pretty sick. Like, yeah, I know. It's like let's see what the guys got. I hope Steelers hire Weaver. I hope Anthony Weaver gets a head coaching job. One, for the picks, but two, he also seems like a good guy. Willis is going to be pricey, but it's possible. I agree. It's probably going to be out of their price range, but there is ways to maneuver cap, and you can push money back to next year if really needed. But I do think, obviously, the Dolphins are going to be very connected to Malik Willis coming into free agency. Like, for sure, just because of the Packers connection alone. Plus, we're one of the teams that need quarterbacks. So, yeah. Yeah, we can complain about it once we've actually seen him be a coach. Maybe you could not wait on Hafley, sadly. They should have kicked the tires on McDermott. I very much doubt McDermott wanted to coach in Miami. And even then, McDermott's another one that, like, I just don't think those guys want to go to Miami where they don't have a quarterback situation figured out, because I don't think those guys want to ruin their reputation. Because guys like Harbaugh, McDermott, they are coming from teams with top 3 quarterbacks in the league, and they still couldn't win it all with those quarterbacks. You think they're going to even make the playoffs without one in Miami? This is a process. He doesn't get more than 10 to 12 mil, right? Who, Malik? If you're talking about Malik Willis, then I would guess he gets more than that. Let me see what people are saying. Still middle of the road with Hafley, and that's fair. I think middle of the road is probably where most people should be, and then maybe you can lean to one side, you know. But I feel like we shouldn't be going to extremes. This is a tweet. Synergy between GM and head coach is good here for Miami. I'm a fan of Hafley's defenses structurally. Wonder who he pulls in as OC. And that is coming from someone who is a that's JP Acosta, if you know who that is. But yeah, I think OC will be very true, and I do think having synergy between I do think the GM and head coach being on the same page is very important. It actually ends up hurting a lot of teams. But wow. Wow. Interested to see where things play out next. And now we can, I've gotten some comments. I made a mock draft video today, and I got some comments about being like, I don't think we can do mock drafts until we get the coach for scheme and stuff, which I agreed with. I was sort of just taking people in general that I liked. But I do think now we can have a better idea. I'm going to do a deep dive into his defensive scheme tonight, so I will have a better idea of what types of players he looks for. There's one player that comes to mind. I just feel like, I don't know why, because I know he loves Evan Williams. Evan Williams is a safety for the Packers. And there's some safeties in this class that are like this. But Evan Williams also played at Oregon, and Dylan Thieneman from Oregon just really gives me that vibe too, with some of his versatility and instincts. And I'm a big Dylan Thieneman fan. I'll be a fan of his in this process. So this is my shot saying, like, don't be surprised if the Dolphins are very interested in Thieneman. Let me guess, the OC is going to be a Green Bay Waterboy. I would guess you're wrong. It's just reset the Dolphins back 10 more years. Wow. This one move? What if they literally fire him next year? You think it's still set him back 10 years? It would have been nice to at least interview him and pick his brains since he's been beating us for almost a decade. Yeah. Or who you think fits better, Jeff's scheme as a pass rusher, David Bailey or Ruben Bain? I would say give me a little bit of time on that, Anthony. I know he likes to run more of a 4-3, hand in the dirt, which both guys are definitely capable of doing. I do think they do like size, but I think it's, you know what's the thing is, I actually think it's more of like an in-between of the two. A guy who's maybe a little lighter than Bain, but a little heavier than Bailey, and then maybe an in-between of the athlete. Like they want some very athletic edge rushers, but guys who clearly have some size too. So if I had to guess, though, I would guess Bailey. But I'm gonna do a deep dive tonight, so I'll have a better feel. I wouldn't mind an Ewers Willis Open QB competition. This is actually a good thing for Ewers, because if they do bring in a Shanahan LaFleur guy, that gives Ewers a chance to compete, because I do think that's pretty much the system that's the system he's ran in college, system he ran, under McDaniel, or at least, semi the same system. It's the one that gives him the best chance of being an NFL quarterback. I just think, I'd rather go with Willis, because I think you need an athletic quarterback in today's NFL, and Willis is quite athletic, while I also think he does a lot of good quarterback things well. Like, that guy is completing a lot of passes. Very good accuracy, surprisingly. Well, also can make some plays with his legs. Is it true Green Bay drafts well? They have a pretty good history of drafting well. They have their misses, but I would say overall, like, they've built like a pretty rich history over the years. It's been like the same branch for a long time. Yes, OC is definitely a huge move. I'm gonna make that video on the defense and OC. Depending on who the OC is, I might make I'll either do a breakdown of his scheme. If they haven't been someone who's a play caller before, then maybe we'll talk about like what branch they come from, and then I'll maybe do some streams on like guys who fit the system for Miami, the guys that we have already on the roster, and then guys in the draft that would fit that system. Maybe looking at McKylum or Kenyon Sadiq. I'm a fan of both players. I think Sadiq's just in a weird. I just think the Dolphins are in a weird range where they don't pick Sadiq, because I think 11's too early and 43's too late. He'll be gone. Ryder, you like Messidor? Messidor is a very good player. Unfortunately, he's 25. And if I'm the Dolphins, I'm thinking pretty long term. So if he falls a little bit, I'm down to take him. Like, I don't know if I want to use an early pick on a 25-year-old when I don't know if we're going to be we're not going to be a team that's, competitive right away. I kind of want some younger players, but I'm mad. Ryder wanted Joe Brady. Hey, you might get Joe Brady as OC. He's out there available. Actually, I doubt it, but do you think we lose Brewer to new Big O line scheme? Well, the thing is, I know they got bigger in Green Bay, but Green Bay does run that Shanahan-style scheme, so they can definitely make Brewer work pretty well. Any opinions on Ram safety Cameron Curl? He made that big play yesterday. I liked Cam Curl as a free agent option when he was available, either last year or the year before. Yeah, he's not a bad player. Green Bay is big on their tight ends. Hell yeah, give me a tight end. There's some guys I like in this class a lot. This tight end class is pretty good. It's not as good as last year's. Last year's tight end class was good. Was really high end. But there's some guys, you obviously got Sadiq in the first, but as the first overall guy, I just think it's a little too early for him. But there's guys like Max Clare at Ohio State, Eli Stowers, Vanderbilt. I'm a huge Oscar Delp fan. I just feel like Georgia did not utilize Oscar Delp to his full potential. And he's someone that I could see just I think he projects really well to the NFL level and does all things pretty good. Willing blocker, does his job there. Elite burst, elite burst. There's guys like Eli Raridan, Sam Roush, even some later round sleepers that I like too. And then I haven't even watched everyone yet, but yeah, there's some nice players. Yeah, Waddle will be just fine. Waddle, it's basically the same thing Waddle's been doing. I think Waddle's pretty scheme versatile. Every sort of scheme needs a player like that. And JS mentioned Brewer by name, and that's pretty telling. Usually, they mention the young guys. They'll mention an A-Chain. That makes sense. The young star running back. But they mentioned, the second team All Pro center who's on the final year of his contract. They also mentioned Jordan Brooks. I think that means like he mentioned the guys that are in contract years, which I think definitely points to they are at least going to try to resign players. But more than likely edge or OT. Yeah, I agree. I think edge and right tackle, if I had to guess, would be the most likely pick in the first. But just based on how it, like where they're picking, value wise, need, that would be what I would guess. But I think they will. If you had to choose between McNeil Warren or Kamari Ramsey, who do you think looks more like a Jeff Hafley type safety? It might be Ramsey, but I think I prefer McNeil Warren as a player. I think he can make any of them work. Delp could be very good. Yeah, I just don't. I didn't like. Georgia had a lot of tight ends. I do not understand their usage of Delp at all because he's such a better receiver than they used him. They used him so much as an inline blocker, and he can block in line, but he is actually a quality receiver. I hope so. Tucker Kraft's like a stud. Clear in the third, your latest mock, I would have taken him. Yeah, he was definitely an option. I was very heavily considering him. I just have to watch a little more Max Clare. Because I do think I want to go back to his film from last year when he was at Purdue. Because I thought his Purdue film was better when I watched it, like months and months ago. So I wanted to go back. I want to go back and watch the Max Clare Purdue film because I do think they used him more as an inline, or allowed him to do a little bit more there. That I think Ohio State didn't really unlock Max Clare because of the wide receivers they have. So just want to go back to really get an idea on that. Is Denzel Boston a Packers type receiver? I mean, the Packers are pretty like they have like all their like they have a lot of different types of receivers. From Watson, who's like the taller, long stride deep threat. Jaden Reed, who's like your more shifty slot they use as like a gadget type player. Got Romeo Dobbs on the outside, who is more like the make tough contested catches, be exactly where you're supposed to be type of guy. Dontavion Wicks, also a bigger body guy, but good route runner, but struggles with some hand catching. So all the receivers are fairly different over there. Matthew Golden is like the guy who had the really fast 40 time. They haven't quite used him yet, but they haven't done. Show me some pro Hafley player comments. I have one here from Sherman. There's a couple actually that I saw. There's one where he tweeted out, and then there's one here. He said this is when he like years ago. He said his preparation is some of the best I've seen. I've had some great defensive coaches, and he's right up there with his preparation. So he talked about his preparation. And then there was one tweet I saw on Twitter earlier today where like he tweeted about him saying people were like, "Do you hate the Packers?" And he's like, "No, I don't hate the Packers. I always root for Jeff Hafley because he's one of his favorite coaches." And he believes that he was like I don't remember the exact quote, but he did say along the lines of like, "I think the players are making his defensive scheme look worse than it is in like a game they had lost." Micah Parsons, yes, Micah Parsons like didn't want to lose Hafley at all. If you had to guess, are we going defense or offense in the first round after today, Siring? I actually don't think it plays too much into it because McDaniel's first round picks were both defense in his time here. So I don't think it matters too much. If Weaver gets hired as head coach as one of the comp picks this year, do they hit next draft? I believe it's one this year, one next year, Scotty. I believe so. What's Hafley's scheme like? Pretty like aggressive penetration type of scheme. More 4-3. They like to mix it up. They run more single high. The cover 3 is their most common coverage. That's the most common coverage in the NFL. But he definitely mixes things up. Like cover, I believe the Packers defense this past year, cover 3 was like in the low 30%. But cover 2, cover 4, cover 6 were all in like that 18% range. So he's definitely willing to mix it up, disguise his looks. He'll bring pressure here and there. I don't remember his exact blitz percentage, but he'll definitely bring some pressures. Yeah, like some simulated pressures. He likes to play with like gives his DB like vision, some like flat foot vision based reads, get the ball, like force them to get the ball out quickly, get downhill type of defense. Joey Royer, yeah, I like Joey Royer from Cincinnati. Don't know too much about the Wyoming guy. What do you think the chances are that Hafley keeps Weaver? He doesn't get hired elsewhere. Could that work? What's your favorite coverage? Um, my favorite coverage. I don't know. I like doing some of like the quarters match stuff. That's always very interesting. Uh, different variations of cover three. I mean, probably. Yeah. Well, like people might point to the playoffs that they kind of choked that lead, but like literally, you can look at Ben Johnson. He had like one of his worst performances ever in his final playoff games with the Lions. It was like one of his worst performances, and then he got the Bears job and did just fine as a head coach. I feel like people get maybe a little too caught up in like one. I know some people will be mad about him being a first time hire. Personally, I don't care. I know people always point to Miami's history, but I like to look at the league's history, and I don't think there's like a specific way you have to do things. I think you can find success. It really just depends on the individual person. Yeah, I'm just trying to see if there's anything else being said. Damn, we got a lot of people. Damn, over 200 in here. Apparently, 1,700 people have clicked on. That's a lot in 30 minutes. Yeah, keep an eye out for the film breakdown tomorrow on his game. This guy was a head coach for college. Yeah, he was a head coach in college like years ago, and then he's been a Packers defensive coordinator the past 2 years. Tanner McKee. I did not talk about Tanner McKee. I mean, he's not a bad option out there. I just don't know what trade compensation would look like. I just feel like they're more likely if they're going to trade for. I just feel like they're more likely to sign a Malik Willis than go trade for Tanner McKee. But you never know. Who do you think the OC will be? Honestly, I have no idea. I know there's a lot of options from like and names I've seen be thrown around. I think it could be like I would like to see him. I don't think it necessarily has to be someone that comes from the Packers, but I would like to see him maybe stick with that same thing. Like maybe he brings that guy in from the Rams that's getting some head coaching, like Sheil Haas or whatever his name is, to be your play caller, or you get Clay Kubiak, who's the 49ers offensive coordinator, because he doesn't call plays with Shanahan, or they could keep Bobby Slowick because maybe Slowick wasn't actually the problem in Houston. It might have been C.J. Stroud, who had a lot of struggles without Slowick. But who knows? How will our D tackle group benefit from Hafley's game? That's actually something I'm very interested to do when I go on my deep dive. Is what he does ask of his defensive tackles, because if they are very like aggressive one gapping, I actually think that is pretty good for Biggers and Grant. It could hurt Jordan Phillips, but I think Jordan Phillips, they're going to ask him to do what Jordan Phillips does best. So I'm not too worried about him, but I actually think it could benefit the other two rookies, because I actually think Grant. I know Biggers is definitely at his best playing penetration wise, and then I think Grant had to two gap a lot this year. But I think when he like in college and the times he did get allowed to be a little more aggressive and get upfield, I was actually pretty impressed on those reps. It just was they didn't ask him to do that very often. Yeah, I've seen some predictions. There's I don't know. His name's like Brian Angelicchio. He's someone I think comes with would come with him. I don't know how he would do. Will be interesting. Or apparently he's the passing game coordinator for Minnesota. But that's also Kevin O'Connell coming kind of from that same branch. But Frank Cignetti was his OC at Boston College, Kurt's brother. Oh yeah, I think I remember reading that. Yeah, we definitely have a young team. I mean, we had the youngest. We cut a lot of the older players last year, and then we had the youngest draft in last year's class. That Texas Patriots game was painful. Oh, tell me about it, man. That was hard to watch. But yeah, I think that will do it. I appreciate you guys for coming in here, hanging out. Watch out for that film breakdown tomorrow. I will try to get it up probably by noon Eastern.